This is Lori Feldman, aka the Database Diva, and our webinar today is 7 ways to use drip marketing in your business. We have a pretty good turnout for today. Thank you all for giving us some time. This is how our presentation is going to work. Everyone on the call is muted, but if you have a question, you'll notice there's a question box on your GoToWebinar dashboard, and all you have to do is type it in there, press enter, click send, and we'll answer some of them as we go, and we'll save time at the end for questions as well. Don't worry about taking notes. We are recording this, and you will have a chance to listen to the replay if you've missed something or you want to hear something again or see something on the screen that we're going to be showing. You'll receive the recording link tomorrow along with the other resources that we are going to be talking about. We want to keep this session to the full or less than the 60 minutes that we promised. So at the end, we'll let you know when our time is up and we'll officially end the meeting. However, if there are some extra questions, we'll stay on a bit longer to answer them, and those will be part of the recording that you can listen to again if you'd like. All right, so let me introduce our team for today. We have Todd Vio on our control panel and our technical guru, and most of you were invited by either Dan Rosenberger from Datacom Solutions or Mark Mondo from Mondo CRM. And if you were invited by me or by someone else, thank you as well for coming. We have a pretty quick agenda for today. We're going to talk about what is drip marketing. There's still some confusion. It's a fairly new marketing topic. But then we're going to jump into, Todd, what is this thing that I have to do here on the color scheme thing? Do I have to do anything? Okay, sorry. The 7 must-have drips for your business. We're going to give you lots of ideas of how you can increase your sales leads and revenue this year using a form of drip marketing, and how to do that, how to get started with that. So let's just jump in. And the first thing that I want to do is talk about my famous treasure triangle, because one of the ways that people get confused very easily is e-marketing is a huge component of drip marketing, but it's something that people kind of lump together with lots of things and call it drip marketing or e-marketing. So the treasure triangle hopefully will explain the difference and put things in the right buckets for you as we go through the presentation today. So for example, we have a 3-sided triangle, and it's an equilateral triangle. So no side is more important than another, but the sum of the components is what I call the money map, because if you do e-marketing properly, it will point you to new revenue in your ACT database using the clients and prospects that you already have. So let's go through each point. First of all, top left, we have an email blast promotion. It's usually a one-off, one and done kind of a situation. Usually there's a time sensitivity to it, a deadline or whatever, and it's usually about a product or a service or an event. On the top right, we have e-newsletter, so everybody's pretty familiar with what a newsletter is. So an e-newsletter is just one that's delivered digitally, and that's typically where we'll talk about all about you, your company, your products, your services, your employees, your best customers, your services, your low prices, all those kinds of things. All right, so now let's move to the bottom of the triangle, and that's where drip marketing comes in. So drip marketing is also known as lead nurturing, and lead nurturing messages actually get 4 to 10 times the response rate of standalone email blasts. So 4 to 10 times the response as the top left corner gets. So a higher deliverability rate, a higher open rate, a higher engagement rate. The average click-through rate of a lead nurturing campaign is typically 3 times that of standard email. And according to marketing sources, nurtured leads have a 23% shorter sales cycle. So we all want that. We want sales to happen now, not in 2 weeks. And we want more people calling us, asking us questions so we can send out more proposals. So all of those things are possible with more engaged messaging. And that's what the drip marketing is. So if you think of the top half versus the bottom half of this treasure triangle, essentially what you have is on the top half messaging that's all about me, my company, me, 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 me. But at the bottom half, we're switching it, we're flopping it, and we're doing messaging that's all about our customers and prospects. Very little about us, very little about selling, very little about pricing. And we're instead solving problems, typical problems that people would have that would cause them to seek out our services, but not being in-your-face marketing to them about it. So that's the huge difference in how to think about drip marketing as we go into this presentation. So what is drip marketing? Drip marketing is from the agricultural world. It's a technique used to keep plants hydrated in the fields over a period of time when there's not a lot of water sources or rain. And it's not a flood followed by a drought. It's a drip, drip, drip of moisture to keep everything hydrated and flourishing. So we use that in the marketing world for our business, and we say, okay, drip is a planned, scheduled point of contact over a period of time to keep our relationships alive and nurtured. So rather than a one and done, and then we expect we're going to get business from that person over the next year, or a salesperson goes out on a sales call and then gets busy with the day-to-day and moves on to the next opportunity, maybe some lower hanging fruit. We don't forget about that first person. We stay in touch with them over time because not everybody makes a buying decision immediately. So you may have heard terminology like marketing automation, autoresponder, follow-up, nurture marketing, stay in touch marketing. These are all kind of the same words to describe the drip marketing concept. And marketing automation sometimes will refer to the technology that is used. In most of the cases of people on the call today, Swiftpage is your email marketing tool of choice, and it's got a built-in drip marketing module with it. So you can call that marketing automation, more of the technology side, but the rest of it is really more of a strategic way of approaching the people that you want to end up as your customers. So why do people do drip marketing? And this is a really good question. The question that I always ask is, why aren't people doing drip marketing? It's such an obvious, immediate competitive advantage for so many businesses. But people do it because in the olden days of marketing, there was always the law of X. So, for example, it took 7 touches to reach out to a prospect before they would become a customer. Well, then it went to 12. Well, then it went to 29. Or then it went to, so many times in a month. Whatever. Everybody has their, secret formula. But the idea is the same, that you have to build relationships over time. They don't happen at once. People don't always see the need for what you're selling the first time, the second time, the third time. So drip marketing is a way to help extend the sales call beyond your one-on-one time with that person. It's also a way for you to implement, if you're the owner of your company, a more consistent business philosophy over time. So if you've got a sales force, then you're kind of at the mercy of excuse me, lots of different people going out with different messages about what you do, how you do it, and drip marketing is a way to have a continuity about the way the message is distributed out in the world. And then lastly, not everyone is ready to buy when you're ready to sell, and so this is a way that the messaging continues. Even though you're maybe busy with something else and moving on to other things, the messages are still hitting at the right time with the right context. So here's a traditional sales funnel, and I just turned it sideways so that we could talk about what each part of the funnel might look like in the real world. And in any traditional sales funnel, you've got a mix of people who are just entering, kicking the tires, trying to see if it's something that they want to do, all the way down to people who are totally ready to buy, and maybe you're on a short list of 1 or 2 people. So usually it's like 22%, well, let's start the other way. 65% are the unqualified, and this is where salespeople get frustrated, because when you look at the pipeline, it's not always easy to figure out who's who. But almost 2/3 of them are not going to be qualified for either your price or the timing or the particular service that you're offering. 13% of the people in the pipeline are ready to buy now, and those are the ones that that's the low-hanging fruit. If we can find them and get them closed, salespeople absolutely don't need help with that 13%. They know what to do when presented with a hot prospect. But it's that remaining 22% who are the yes but not now people. And we don't want to lose touch with them, because a huge percentage of them will do something, excuse me, and typically they're going to do something with the person that they talked to last, right before they made the buying decision, pulled out the wallet with the credit card in it to make the decision. So we want to be that last touch before they make the decision to buy, and drip marketing helps us with that. So here was a quote from Harvard Business Review, and basically, I'll let you all read it, but there are 2 ways, and 2 ways only, to improve your bottom line. One is cut costs, and a lot of us have been doing that a lot over the last 5 years since our alleged recession, and we're pretty good at knowing how to strip the fat from our organizations. The other way is to improve our bottom line is to increase sales, and a subset of that is we can increase our sales much more quickly if we market like crazy all the time. And there's so many opportunities now on how to do that with social media opportunities. Traditional media is still out there, but not very many people are doing it. So there's blogging on your own website, doing more things with your website, search engine optimization. I mean, we could go through the list and there'd be 100 different things that are available now that didn't used to be available. But essentially what that's done is it's segmented the marketplace so that it's very difficult to get an entire audience who would be prospects for you all in one place at the same time. But if we could use marketing technology and our database information, so everybody's heard the term big data by now, and what that means is being very smart about the way that you deploy the information you have collected to attract the people who are most likely to want to do business with you, and use marketing technology to help you put that process on steroids. That is a great formula for increasing your revenue. So what's included in drip marketing? This is another kind of a myth, but it's a lot of times email. And yes, email results are down, but and the way that email is now tracked has changed. Gmail has made a huge difference. Google has made a huge difference in the way email is tracked through Gmail now. But it still remains one of the top performing ways of reaching an audience, especially an audience generated from your database. But drip marketing can include phone calls, postcards, surveys, lots of different things, and a lot of the things that we have on this list are available in your Swiftpage subscription at no extra charge. There is an extra charge for the drip marketing module, but you have a survey tool in there. You can use your email. It'll generate call lists. It's kind of an all-in-one marketing automation tool. And there's a few people that we've talked to over the years of doing this. We've been doing this now for almost 8 years. And people say, well, why do I need to do an automated process? I can just remember that I need to do 10 touches with this prospect over the next 6 months, and I'll just go into my email program and I'll just generate that message. Well, that means you have to do it when you think about it. If you forget to think about it, it doesn't get done. It has to be scheduled, and somebody has to do it, and hopefully that person is going to remember to do it and not be out sick on vacation. Once you have recurring reminders set up, times the number of prospects or customers that you want to put on that campaign and have it be relevant to when they hit a trigger in your business. So for example, I put 10 people on a drip today, and then in 2 weeks I have a whole new group of people, so I want to start them at the beginning, where the people at the beginning are now kind of midway through. So you may have like 1 million reminders going on, popping up, driving everybody crazy, and the more reminders you have, the less likely they are to get acted upon. And again, just that process of having to think about it every day when you've got everything else going on, it's just not as likely that something is going to remain consistent in your business if you have to do it manually. So making it an automated process, yes, there's software involved, which may incur another cost, but it is very affordable. You can apply a templated response, figure out what that is up front, apply a templated response when things happen in your business, and have it launch automatically, which would eliminate any administrative overhead. In fact, we just took on a client whose sole reason for starting a drip marketing strategic initiative with us is to be able to downsize one of her administrative people. And it really acts as an unpaid salesperson 24/7, 365, and brings in a lot of interest without anyone having to do anything. So kind of like Christmas on a regular basis when you go and check and you've got new messages coming in from people requesting information about your services. Very cool. So we talked about the treasure triangle, and what we want to do with drip marketing is educate our future prospect to become a good customer. Wherever he starts with you in the buying process, there would be, if you could actually know who he was and know where he was in the buying process, you as the professional, as the expert in your field, would be able to say, this is the information this person needs to know right now from me in order to make the best decision to use my company. You would be able to do that intuitively, but what we want the drip to do is to do that for you automatically. So by templating your responses, it's very easy to do that without you having to be involved one-on-one. So here are some of the questions that we get asked about how to start this whole drip marketing process. And my favorite one is, I'm in a boring business, so how do I make it interesting? And I actually have a sample of that exact thing that I'm going to show you in just a little bit for one of the clients that we worked with who was an engineer. And there are a lot of very boring businesses out there because people haven't thought about how to present the ideas in a fascinating way. I think just about anything can be made interesting if you know what the hot buttons are for the people who are buying from you. And of course, there is a requirement to create content, and that's something that nobody has time in their day to do. So that is a challenge. But creating good content is what causes good campaigns, so it's imperative. And then another question I get asked a lot is, well, nobody reads the email, and it can't be very long or people will delete it. Well, those things are not true. Yes, attention spans are shorter, but if you're writing stuff that people really are interested in, they do spend time with those messages. And again, if you think of the treasure triangle, people are not going to spend time with an email blast that has a great big picture and a $$ off sign and a deadline on it if they're not in the market for buying at that moment that product. But if it's a considered purchase where they're going to be spending thousands of dollars eventually, they're going to be doing lots of research, whether that includes you or not. And if you can put information out there that's interesting, they will spend time reading everything that you have to say about it and hopefully thinking of you as the expert. So let's move into our 7 most common triggers in your business for a potential drip marketing campaign. And these are what they are, and they're sort of in the order of most important to least important from an urgency standpoint from the client's point of view. So if someone comes to your website and they fill out a form because they want the information that's on the other side of that form, that's a pretty hot prospect. That person is pretty far down in the considered purchase area right now. And they're on their website, or they're on their search, on their search engine doing lots of research to get themselves more educated. The one that we get asked the most about probably is that second one, though. And I guess the best way to think about how to incorporate this into your own business is every day when you go to work, you know certain things are going to happen. You know somebody's going to hit your website and there's going to be a form filled out and a lead generated. You know you're going to fill out an estimate, send a proposal to a prospect trying to sell something that he's asked for a quote for. You know you may go to the Chamber of Commerce luncheon event or a networking event, and you're going to meet new people who are going to hand you a business card, and then you're going to have to do something with those cards. So all these things are very typical business interactions, but what we can't know, because none of us has that crystal ball, is who these events will happen with. We don't know who, but we do know what, and so we can templatize our responses in advance when each of these things happen. So when they do happen, all we have to do is pull the trigger, and there's an automatic follow-up that happens naturally and keeps us on track with the people that we are probably going to end up having a relationship with in the future. So to get started, the best thing to do is to pick a trigger and decide the ideal way to follow up in that particular trigger case. Think about the big picture. What does that person want to know? When do they want to know it? You want to start setting yourself up as the expert in providing all this good information. So you want to hyperlink to your digital assets, which are things on your website, maybe a YouTube video, your social media pages. You want to determine what the timing is. If you have a sales cycle that lasts a year, you probably want to have a drip marketing campaign that lasts a year. If your buying cycle is maybe a week, then you're going to want to shorten up that response to just a few days. You're also going to want to segment your list so that you're always sending the right message to the right person. There's nothing worse and no faster way to get an opt-out than to send interesting information to the wrong people who don't care. That's immediately what causes people to opt out. So segmenting your database is a huge way to avoid having that happen. Then you'll launch the campaign, you'll analyze your results, you'll see what's working, what's not working, you'll tweak it, and you'll keep going. You can also repurpose your drips as blog posts or social media status updates. That's a great way to get more mileage out of the information that you're putting together. So as part of you being on today's call, you are going to be dripped by us, and you will get to see how we do it professionally following up to an event, this webinar. And of course you can opt out at any time, but we're hoping that you won't. We're hoping that you're going to take a fine-tooth comb and kind of go through our messages and look and see what kinds of things we included and whether we hit the nail on the head with some of the thoughts that you're thinking by sitting in on this webinar. And you'll get to see how long it lasts. So hopefully it'll be an educational experience. We've had a lot of people who have printed out those messages and just kind of generalized, excuse me, generalized to their own business, how to use it to do their own follow-ups. And it's been pretty helpful. So I welcome you to do that as well. All right, so let's jump in, and I'm going to give you some examples of some drip campaigns and then also some tips on how to incorporate these kinds of drips into your own business. So we'll start with website leads or an inquiry that comes to your website. And actually 78% of all sales start with a web inquiry. It's probably even higher than that now. I don't know how old that stat is, but it's probably at least a year old, and that number keeps getting higher. In fact, not only does a sale start with a web search, but people are more and more going to mobile searches, and more business is being transacted on mobile. So it's even more imperative that your messaging have kind of a mobile component to it now. So we had a client who was in the home improvement industry, and they had a downloadable brochure of some of their buildings that they would construct for you. And they were already getting 10 to 20 leads a day when we first started working with them. But they were using a website form that came with their website. And so people would fill out the form and they would get emailed the lead, but then the owner of the company, who was also the lead contractor, had to double enter those leads into his ACT database in order to follow up. So he had a part-time salesperson. So between the two of them, they would have to figure out, well, was this person entered into ACT yet, or was he not into ACT yet, or did he call in and he's already been given a quote? It was very convoluted, confusing, not very efficient. So we swapped out the web form that was his website web form, and we put up a Swiftpage web form. And when people came to his website then and downloaded the brochure, he still got the email alerting him of the lead, but that lead was then automatically put into his ACT database, and that contact was launched on a drip marketing campaign. So even if the contractor got busy for a couple of days and didn't have a chance to follow up right away, the potential customer, was still getting responses, personalized responses from this contractor, as if the contractor were reaching out directly. So it really bought him some time. It made him look like a bigger company that he was, and it improved his efficiency enormously and allowed him to get a lot more done. So that happened with another contractor that we had as well. Any kind of a service business where people are calling for pricing and you need to get back to them immediately, and it's not always possible to do that. This is a good strategy for following up with those kinds of leads. So another construction company that we were working with built sound barrier walls on the highways, and he worked with a lot of engineers and architects, and when they would call in, they weren't necessarily getting quotes for actual jobs. They were getting quotes for bids that they were putting together, where he was just a little tiny piece of the whole puzzle. And he got a request on his website for a quote, but that weekend, it had come in over the weekend, and that weekend he got busy with some hiring and some other things and just didn't follow up right away. But the drip was going out, and the way that he had structured the drip was to have 3 messages go out 3 days in a row with very specific things that engineers and architects always asked him. And on Monday, he got a reply email to one of those messages saying, "Oh, it was so great to hear from you so fast. You're really on top of it. Here's a quote that I need for this project," and it ended up being a $25,000 quote. Now, prior to all this happening, he knows that he's missed some of those opportunities. They've just moved on to the next company because there was no response. But here he kept in touch over those 3 days, even though it was the drip, but it was personally signed by him, and it was in his voice with his information that he would normally say on a call to this person. Worked out great. So for website leads, my 3 tips for you are: 1, you must send out an autoresponder instantly after the submit button is pressed. There has to be an immediate kind of confirmation to the person who took their time to fill out the form that you knew that they did that. And that should launch them on a drip marketing response so that over time they're getting more information. If you want to get more leads coming in on your website, the easy way to do that, very important, easy way to do that is to put more forms up on your site. More forms, more leads. It's that simple. It's amazing that people don't do that. Most people have 3 forms on their site, that's it. One of them a contact us form. Put more forms up, get more leads. And then number 3, the duration of your drip is going to be dependent on the length of your sales cycle. So match it up. Okay, cold prospect. I mentioned before, this is the one that we get asked the most about. It's the hardest one to do. And the reason is there is no relationship there. It's you deciding that you want to do business with that person, but that person may or may not be the right person for you. So it is tricky. And we had worked with a food manufacturer, for example, who we were working with the marketing department. It wasn't even the engineers or they weren't engineers, they were food people, food scientists. And their food scientists were not marketing people, but they had more product knowledge, and the marketing people had marketing knowledge but no product knowledge. It was very, very difficult to put together a good, compelling prospecting message. It's also, this is the one that you're most likely to annoy your recipients with messages from. And, you know, even though I can't see you out in cyberspace right now, raise your hand if you would like to get more email every day. You know, there's probably no hands going up, but yet this is the one that everybody wants to do. So there really is a secret to doing it. Excuse me, and sometimes you have to be a little bit controversial in order to get attention, to stand out and not offensively get attention. But my 3 tips are: never make your email the first contact. You don't want to be a spammer. Swiftpage won't let you put a bunch of emails in that you scraped off the internet or that you bought from a list company. You absolutely have to make a first contact in a different way. Number 2, you can't be in a hurry. If you need to have $100,000 in sales by the end of this month, then drip marketing is probably not going to do it for you. I don't know that there is anything that you can do, but it definitely is not drip marketing. You have to be willing to invest the time to build the relationship and get people familiar with what you're talking about so they can see if they have interest. Now, once you are ready to send out that first message, you need to have a great opening introductory message. And I want to show you one that, this is the one that I was talking about earlier, that we helped our client. I don't know if you can read that, but if not, it'll be on the recording. When we send it out tomorrow, I can send it out separately as well. But he was an industrial engineer, and he was in the materials handling equipment business, and he sold to shop managers and purchasing agents and warehouse owners. He's in a highly competitive, kind of a buy it on Amazon type competition business, meaning very price driven. People don't understand the equipment enough to know why something is more expensive than something else. It really needs a salesman intervention to explain it. There's a lot of engineering with, you know, height and width, and, you know, can the equipment go down the aisles properly without banging into the inventory, whatever. So this was kind of a little bit of a funny opening, and he has been getting great results with this. So maybe it's something that you can tweak for your own business. It was a little bit longer than a first message that I like, but I thought it had a nice subject line, which is this right here. And it had a very friendly, approachable introductory message, and of course everywhere it's blue, those were hyperlinks to specific things that he wanted to talk about for his business that they might be interested in. So there's an idea for you. Okay, proposal follow-up. This is one that where the ball gets dropped a lot. You know, you send a quote out, you put a lot of time and effort into the sales meetings, you send a quote out, you talk to people on the phone about the requirements, and then they take a while to decide, and balls get dropped, both on their end as well as on your end. You know, they don't buy right away a lot of times. So we had a security company that had both a residential sales cycle and a commercial side of their business, and the sales cycles were different. The residential side was people decided in 5 days if they were going to buy something or not, and on the commercial side it could take up to 2 years. So drips in their business actually warmed up the call for the salespeople to follow up. By doing the drip, it didn't necessarily push the sale towards happening faster, but what it did was it made the recipients much more receptive to taking a call from a salesperson than they normally would have been. And everybody's gone into that black hole for voicemail where you never get the call back, but they really increased the number of follow-up calls they were able to do because the messages were so on point. So my tips for doing proposal follow-ups are, number one, have a process for immediate sales follow-up even if the rep doesn't have one. So if the sales rep is the one sending out the quotes, they're probably going to go put their time into the prospect who's going to be most likely to close this week, this month. But the proposal needs to have a follow-up until that person buys or tells you to go away. So have a process in place. Number two, make the drip last as long as the typical sales cycle for that product. And number three, think about how to answer typical objections or typical frequently asked questions. A lot of times prospects want to know those answers, but they don't always ask. So if your drip includes those answers, you're helping them. Okay, pre and post event or trade shows. Pre-event, you want to make sure that you're announcing to your customers or prospects that you're going to be at this event and they should come see you there. So that's a very important one. And then once the event is over, you want to follow up with everybody who came by and talked to you, or you talked to them, or you promised that you'd follow up. And so you want to have some kind of a follow-up system. We worked with a skincare and beauty manufacturer's rep, and her company was doing a new product launch. It was 6 weeks out, which is a good number of weeks out to start the marketing for an event like that. And her idea was to invite as many customers and prospects as possible from among salon and spa owners who were very busy. She had about 600 people on her list, and she ended up getting 125 registrants, which is incredible. That's an enormous responder rate. She had about 85 who showed up live, and this event was scheduled for in the winter. It happened to snow that night, the one night of the event. It was a local venue, and her list covered about a 200-mile radius, so somebody would have had to think about driving in potentially bad weather, a few hundred miles to go to this thing. And even though they were very motivated, if the weather was bad at the last minute, they could have changed their mind, which actually did happen. We had actually suggested that she do a webinar instead, and she didn't want to have any of it. She wanted to be able to do live stuff there with, samples and massages and all that kind of stuff. So we helped her design 6 pre-event messages and 6 post-event messages, and the response ended up being as good as could be expected for a one-night-only event that had a lot of things going against it. Much better than it would have been had she just sent out one invitation, and that would have been it. So my tips, if you have events like this coming up, and it could be a webinar like what we're on today, or it could be a live and in-person trade show, or some kind of networking event where you're displaying. Number one, don't make the attend the event a sales pitch for your products. Make sure you understand what it is that you're selling at the time that you're selling it. And if you're inviting people to an event, it's not to sell your product, it's to get them to come to your event. That's what you're selling. So that's what the messaging should be about. You should also incorporate, number 2, you should incorporate social proof using your social media whenever possible to show them who else thinks that your event is hot. Either who else has signed up or who else has commented on it. It's a great opportunity to use social to be able to do that, to show people Okay, I can't miss this. I've got to be there because this person's going to be there. After the event is over, you want to, number 3, let them hear from you right away, but don't necessarily lead with your best information right after the event, because they're going to be busy. They've been out of their office for a few days, and they want to catch up. So you want to follow up and you want to say thank you, but you want to put your best stuff after a few weeks have gone by, possibly when they're ready to concentrate again on business. So don't lead with your best stuff. Okay. A first-time customer, you've done a great job. You've turned them into somebody who has paid you money, and that's great, but you haven't cemented the relationship yet. So for a first-time customer drip, your top tips for this one are you want to keep a happy customer. So they did sign on the dotted line, but the customer wants to know there is a real onboarding process for doing business with you. So, for example, in the first message, you may want to make sure that he has all the important contacts within your company to get questions answered. So, who besides the sales rep can answer general questions? Who do they go to for billing? If they have a problem that can't be resolved, who is the highest decision maker within the company who that they can talk to? And you want to reinforce for them all the reasons that they bought from you to counteract any buyer's remorse that may have happened once they actually signed on the dotted line. You know, there's always the fear that, you know, you sign a contract that, you know, this is like typical cell phone service. You know, you go get your phone upgrade and you're negotiating your new plan, and as soon as you walk out of there with a phone and a 2-year commitment, there's a better deal down the street that you could have gotten if you would have known about it. So you want to try to avoid having customers feel that way by reinforcing all of the good reasons that they chose you in the first place and what you're going to do about any competition that makes noise. Because your customer is still their prospect, and they're still getting hit up by all the other people who they didn't do the business with, and you've got to counteract that even though you may not be aware of it. Inactive customers. This is one of my favorite ones. We had a hazmat kind of company, a hazardous materials company that we worked with, who had a huge database of transactional kinds of customers who would buy stuff, and they hadn't really followed up with anybody after their orders. They had done a good job marketing to them to get their orders, but then they kind of just dropped the ball and went on to the next new customer. So when they sent out their first inactive customer drip message, on one of the first ones that went out, they took in a $14,000 order from a customer that they hadn't talked to in about 4 years. So the tips for doing a good inactive customer drip are, number 1, find out why they aren't buying anymore. Do they just not have money? Did somebody make them mad at your company? Maybe your contact left and their replacement doesn't know who you are. Or maybe there is no replacement. Maybe the company downsized and there is nobody else in that slot anymore, and you need to go resell the customer to somebody else at a different level. You know, lots of things could happen. There could be a sale, a merger, acquisition. In any event, you need to find out what the reason is. So you want to reintroduce yourself in one of your first messages and remind them that they once did business with you and who you are and what you sell. I've gotten these kinds of messages before where people have done that, but they forgot to tell me what they sell, and I'm reading the message going, okay, yeah, but why do I care? And we don't ever want to assume that our customer knows everything that we know. Next, you want to confirm that they're still the right decision maker and maybe ask to be referred if not. And thirdly, you probably want to treat them like a prospect, even though they were a customer at one time, but you want to get them re-excited about you and your solutions again, and not just assume that all you have to do is tweak them and they're going to start buying again. So those were our 7. This is, well, this might be our 7th one. Expiration date renewals, company policy changes, government regulation changes. I guess our big example for this one right now is the ACA. We did an Affordable Health Care Act drip for an insurance agent way back months ago, probably 9 months ago, before anybody was really, people were talking about it, but they really didn't want to know anything about it because there were no deadlines coming up immediately. He was very smart, and he knew just the right questions to pose to people at that point. And the competition really wasn't doing anything. Now everybody's a little bit more educated and knows what to expect, even though they're not necessarily having a good experience. But the game has kind of changed now. But if you're in a business that has a government regulation change, either that happened or is threatening to happen, that is a great opportunity to become the subject matter expert on that topic over a period of time, because when people start being affected by those changes, they're going to remember that you are the one that knew more than anybody else. And of course, there's still more. You know, we call them the top 7, but in reality, these are all additional triggers in your business that could easily support a drip marketing campaign to keep you front and center with customers. So the important thing is just start dripping. Pick 1, pick 2, but just start and see what kind of results you're going to get. You're going to just be shocked. You really are. That happens over and over again with everyone that we work with on these drip campaigns. You know, as a business owner or a salesperson, you never really know how your customer or prospect is going to react to something. You have an idea of what you think is going to happen, and then that's not whatever happens. And drip marketing is a great way to experience that for yourself. So what you want to do is think about, in your business, where are you bleeding the most? Where are you losing the most revenue, the most leads slipping through the cracks, the most competitors eating your lunch? Where are those places? That's probably the best drip to start with. So pick 1, go through the process of getting it up and launched, and then it's super easy to do the ones after that. And most people who have really mastered this technique, and we'll put ourselves into that. We have, you know, between 7 and 10 different campaigns going at any given time, but they don't just all happen at once. It's a long process of thinking through the sales strategy of what works in your business and what your recipients will be interested in knowing from you, and thinking like a customer is one of the hardest things that you can do. So Todd, do we have any questions that we want to think about? And I'm going to, while you're answering me on that one, I will kind of go through. We have one offer for everybody on the call today. We're going to give everyone who is interested a free 10-minute drip marketing brainstorm. And what we'll do is help you identify who the best key customer or prospect is in your business to start with, what you need to do to attract them, how we're going to capture them, probably using your website, the best way to engage them, and how you can follow up with them forever until they buy from you. And we don't say this lightly. At the Database Diva, we have written over 300 drip marketing campaigns, and almost to every 300 they have been successful at some level, either getting people to respond or bringing in sales. And I don't say that to brag. I just say that because it's not an easy process, and when you've worked on that many of them, you know what works and what doesn't work. We pretty much know how to tell you to avoid the things that are not going to work and point you to the things that are going to work. And if you can have a sure thing in business, that's a great thing. But when you can have a sure thing in marketing, that's extra money to the bottom line. So I would encourage everybody to sign up for that free 10-minute brainstorm. We're going to go in the order that we receive them, so we'll let you know as soon as possible when we can get you fit in. But we would love to talk to everybody and show you how to use this wonderful, wonderful strategy that you have at your fingertips with your ACT database and your Swiftpage email account. So, Todd, questions?
No questions.
Okay, I'll open it up to questions, and how did I do on our time? I think we're a little bit ahead of schedule, so that's great. And if you've got a question, go ahead and type it into your question box, and any questions that we don't get to, we'll make sure to answer in the recorded information that we send out. And no question, first of all, you're anonymous when you fill out your chat box question, if you have one, so no one will know it's you. Don't be afraid to ask even a basic question. This is, as I said in the beginning, kind of a new concept for a lot of people, and but it's a very exciting one, so don't be afraid to ask any level of question. And if you're doing it already, feel free to ask a question about your specific situation. I did pretty good without coughing all hour. Huh? All right, well, if we don't have any questions, I thank you all for attending today. Oh, wait, spoke too soon. Okay. The question is, we are looking for mailing lists, calling, or email lists. Any ideas? Yes. Oh, my goodness. You cannot buy a mailing list that most email marketing technology companies will allow you to put into their system as a first touch. So if you want to buy a list to pre-qualify, then that's great, and yes, we can help you identify who those people are that should be on that list. But if you think that you're going to buy a list and dump it into Swiftpage and send out an email, they'll flag you, and they may even cancel your account, so that's not going to happen. Why don't you ask me a more specific question than you did, and because I can probably spend like another hour talking about lists and emails, and I'm happy to do that if everybody wants to hear it, but it would probably be more helpful if you asked a more specific question. Okay. Michael says, for a business in the B2B business services industry, contacts are usually gotten via business cards. How to develop a campaign that would be appropriate? Very good question. Excellent question. Yeah, that is the networking drip, or it could even be considered really a cold prospecting drip. And the best way to do that is this takes a little bit extra work, but my tip for that is when you collect the card, right on the back of the business card, what you think, or maybe you could even ask the question of the person that you're talking to, what their biggest challenge is that you might be able to help them with. And it doesn't necessarily have to be about your business. It could be referring somebody to them who would help them in their business. But just put some kind of a hint to yourself on the back of the card. And then in your ACT database, you can create a field called, engagement issue, or, interest, or whatever. And that can become a mail merge field in the messaging that you send out. And that makes it very personalized to your introduction and time spent with that person, and much more likely that they'll stay on your list. It's very important to soft pedal yourself in that circumstance as much as possible, maybe by asking a question more than giving them product information. And doing maybe a series of 3, maybe keep it light, don't go on and on and on. And if you've got a company newsletter, maybe you can use the first few messages to push people towards signing up for your newsletter, where you'd be able to talk to them over a longer period of time. So those are my tips. Great question, Michael, and those are my tips for you on that. And then Pete says, at what point do you give up on a lead? How many messages do you set up before, I can't tell if that's cut off, I guess before you give up? In my opinion, you never give up. Because if you're doing an automated drip marketing campaign, it's no skin off your nose to keep them on there forever. And you never know. I've had customers that we've converted after 4 and 5 years of being on our list. And there's a few people on this call, as a matter of fact, who fall into that category. I'm still waiting for you guys. But you never know what's going to trigger some. Well, first of all, you don't know why they're not buying. And so sometimes using surveys as part of your drip messages is a really good idea to uncover the mystery behind why are people on your list. They're not opting out, but they're also not buying. So surveys are great for identifying factors that you might be able to address in your messaging. And but I would never give up on anyone. If you think they're good, as long as they're qualified, I wouldn't give up. Okay, yeah, so okay, got the rest of your question. Okay, and then Michael said, do you advocate asking if it's okay to put them on your email list? Yes, some people are very privacy phobic, especially now. That's kind of a hot topic. But I think there's like an implied permission when you go to a networking event and exchange cards with people. I think if you do it properly, I'll tell you what I don't like. I have a lot of people who I meet at networking events and then they request to link to me on LinkedIn, and I accept just about everybody who links to me. But if I do that and then the next message I get from them is a heavy sales pitch, then I go back and I unlink them. That's just a real big turnoff to me. But I think that if you don't think about yourself first, if you put the other person's interests ahead of your own, you know, kind of the golden rule, then there is a way that you can craft messages very easily to make it so that people are happy they know you, not like you're a burden in my inbox. So it's a polite thing, I think, to ask the question, but you need to provide some value to them why you would want to put them on your list. Nobody wants more email, but if there's something specific that they're going to gain by being on your list, then you're going to get a more positive response to that. Good question. All right, let's see. Yep. Is there a best practice when developing the subject line of your message, i.e. best way to get the email even opened? Yes. There is a whole strategy for subject lines, and the whole purpose of a subject line is to get your email open. That's the only purpose of a subject line. So that's like another topic we could talk about for an hour, but in general, I like subject lines that do not have all capital letters, like a headline. I like phrases of sentences. As a general rule, the more factual and boring a subject line is, the more likely it is to get read. So if you think of it not like a marketing message, but something that you would send to a friend that you were sending some good juicy piece of information to, or a YouTube video, what would you put in the subject line? So something friendly, but you know, a couple of words, and not capitalized, because nobody capitalizes anymore on their keyboards. So something that looks like a human wrote it. Those are great subject line options. When you have, you know, 7 words and the first letter of every word is capitalized, and it looks like a headline, that may be punctuality correct, but it's going to flag someone that it's a word. Oh, I don't know. Todd said, is that a word? Probably not. But you get the idea. Try to be as real and as human as you can with every component of a drip marketing campaign. Did I miss a question, Todd? Let's see. Okay. All very good questions, everybody. Thank you for that. We're kind of at the end of our time, so watch your email for the recording, and let us know if you have any other questions. Happy to answer them, and thank you all very much for attending today.